Israel's man-made famine has killed another 8 Palestinians in Gaza in a 24-hour period. Israel is ignoring global calls to let more food into the Strip and defying condemnation from international agencies and governments. At the same time, Israeli troops are reinforcing their presence in northern Gaza as they prepare to seize Gaza City. At least 45 Palestinians have been killed across the Strip. At least 20 of them were killed while waiting for food. Israel's military has carried out airstrikes on Yemen's capital. Fuel depots and a power station were hit in the attack. Israel has repeatedly attacked what it says are sites used by Houthi fighters.
Yeah, well, they're the only people
Protests
standing
have been
up to
held
Israel.
across the world in support of Gaza. This was the scene in Malaysia's capital, Kuala Lumpur. Thousands of people took part in the protest, answering a call from Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim. Malaysia's communications minister spoke to Al Jazeera from the rally, describing Israel's planned takeover of Gaza as a land grab.
We totally reject, we totally condemn this plan. We have stayed consistent in our position, a principled position, which is that Palestine must be free, the state of Palestine must be recognized without any preconditions. And so the attempt by the illegal state of Israel to take land, this amounts to nothing more than a land grab. It is heinous. Not only have they participated in an immoral and abhorrent genocide, but this latest attempt flies completely in the face of everything that has been decided, including at the UN.
In Kenya, hundreds of bikers in Nairobi have been protesting against Israel's war on Gaza. Kenyans chanted "Free Palestine" and criticized the international community for turning a blind eye to the atrocities. Protesters in Senegal marched through the capital, Dakar, demanding the government cut ties with Israel. Demonstrators called for a ceasefire in Gaza and access for international organizations. And thousands rallied in central Copenhagen, calling for an end to the war and for the Danish government to recognize Palestine. More than 100 organizations, including Oxfam, Greenpeace and Amnesty, took part in the march. Tens of thousands of people rallied in Australia as well as part of a national day of action. Protesters called on the government to take a tougher stance against Israel. Organisers say it was one of the largest coordinated demonstrations in the nation's history. Sarah Clark reports from Brisbane.
They came to make their voices heard. The centre of Brisbane was brought to a standstill, with road closures as tens of thousands of people called for an end to Israel's war on Gaza.
I think it's atrocious that the Palestinians are being treated worse than we treat animals.
Every time I picture those families and children and see them starving and crying out for food, I just picture how that would feel as a mother.
I have a child, seeing children my own age, her own age, being killed. Even if I didn't have a child, I think, the fact that we can see all these things firsthand being televised and still allowing it to happen, it's pretty disgusting.
It wasn't just in Brisbane. Thousands of people joined rallies in state capitals across Australia in a coordinated national day of action. Their message: the government must do more. Targeted sanctions on Israel and an end to Australia's arms trade with Israel.
We demand from our politicians more than just talk. We are long past this now. We demand actions in the same way we acted in times of genocide. We are signatories to the Genocide Convention, which means that we have an obligation to prevent and punish genocide when it occurs.
Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has confirmed Australia will recognise Palestinian statehood at the UN General Assembly next month. The federal government has also pledged $85 million in humanitarian aid. But protesters say words and pledges are not enough.
More rallies planned in coming weeks, not just here in Brisbane, but around the country, as people in Australia are calling for tougher action from the federal government.
These demonstrations are more than a show of solidarity. They are demands for accountability. Sarah Clark, Al Jazeera, Brisbane.
The Trump administration has remained silent on the official declaration of famine in the Gaza Strip. William Lawrence is a former US diplomat. He says the president's advisors have significant influence in the White House.
I think the dynamic right now is that Trump, usually with sort of narcissistic leaders and bombastic leaders, what they do is they either pronounce what's on their mind or they go quiet. You can't really get them often to change and make strong statements the other way. And his silence right now, I think, is largely driven by his advisors, Witkoff, Mike Huckabee, the ambassador to Israel, and others who are telling them, look, we're trying to change certain things on the ground in a certain direction, including a lot of pressure on the UN and try to get them to, funnel the aid in through a mechanism which has killed 1,000 people and it's proven disastrous. But that he's getting bad advice from these very right-wing people that work for him, and that makes him silent. Americans are very spun up on this issue. I mean, 2/3 of Americans now believe the U.S. needs to act immediately to help Palestinians. 2/3 are for the recognition of the state. Nearly half of Americans are calling it a genocide. The public opinion's really shifting quite dramatically since July, when the majority of Americans started to be opposed to Israeli actions. And so we have movement, unlike Israel. We have more movement going. And even Melania Trump, wrote a letter to Netanyahu about saving the children. And it wasn't about the hostages. It was about the starving children. So there's some momentum growing, but it's falling on deaf ears in the Oval Office because Trump has decided he's going to take bad advice from the people who are guiding him on policy towards Israel.
Fighters from Sudan